Two friends, Crix and Zine, both grew up very close to one another. Both were taught the same lessons and ideals by the elders of their society. A society that was highly intolerant of Force users. Unfortunately for Zine, she was Force sensitive, but forced to live in a culture that punished those who used the Force. This led her to suppress who she really was, even from Crix. She was stuck in a society that was deeply rooted in a fear and hatred towards Force users, even instilling some of those stereotypes to herself. When the Great Disaster hit, both Crix and Zine were in Brylanax City on Triment 4, with some of the disaster's debris flying towards the unsuspecting planet. The ensuing chaos forced Zine to use the Force power she had attempted to suppress all her life to save those around her and herself from an incoming chunk of space trash. How will this open expression of the Force affect her feelings about herself, and how would it affect Crix, who was taught his whole life that Force users were to be rejected and hated? In addition, how would their exposure to other Force-sensitive individuals challenge their perspectives on Force users? Hello there, and welcome to D-odorant, a channel dedicated to strange and interesting facts about Star Wars lore. In this first episode of Psychology of a Star War, we're going to be looking at how cultural norms and prejudices can affect how one views a victim of such prejudice and how those victims view themselves, as well as what happens when those views are challenged. In the case of Zine, the outsider in the situation, it is clear that she was having a hard time dealing with her Force powers. Growing up in a society such as hers, she was certainly under a great deal of internal stress. This can be seen in Issue 1 of High Republic Adventures, when she explains that the power inside of her terrifies her. She clearly had a great number of prejudices about Force users instilled in her from her childhood, causing her to fear the power within her. These negative concepts of what a Force user was and their place in society pushed her to attempt to disidentify from her identity as a Force-sensitive individual. In essence, she attempted to suppress her abilities in order to avoid associating herself with the Force users that were so despised in her culture. For Crix, his views on Force users were relatively straightforward. He was taught that they were something to be feared and hated, and as such he developed his own prejudices towards them, adopting the same intolerant views that were typical of his culture. However, their views on Force users would be challenged when the Jedi arrived at their city. For Zine, she witnessed a group of Force users for the first time. Did they live up to the horrible stereotypes her culture had raised her to believe? No, they were risking their lives to save and protect the people of her city. This was a pivotal point for her views on Force users. It challenged everything that she had been told. Now, she had a choice. She could refute what she had seen, choosing to see the Jedi's actions as being selfish or dangerous, or she could reform her whole worldview on Force-powered individuals. The former would be far easier. She wouldn't have to challenge everything she had heard her entire life. Sure, it would force her to continue to fear and suppress herself, but that is what she had always done. That was what she was comfortable with. Or she could allow this new experience to transform her lifelong held views. It would be uncomfortable, it would take a lot of mental effort, and force her to challenge many of the fundamental beliefs she had thought to be true. It would be confusing and hard and draining, but it would be the right choice. Despite it being the harder path, this is what Zine decided. And it wasn't easy. Even in Issue 3, it was clear that she is still a bit confused by the Jedi's kindness and support of her Force abilities. Regardless, she is doing her best to broaden her perspective and challenge what she had been taught. On the other hand, you have Crix. Just like Zine, he had seen the Jedi work to protect himself and the rest of his city. He even witnessed Zine using her powers to help save them. As such, he was given the same choice. Challenge all the prejudice and hatred he had been taught to have towards Force users, which would now include Zine, or allow his perspective to be morphed, and allow himself to see Force users as they really were. Unfortunately, Crix was not as strong as Zine, and opted to reject what he had seen, even opting to ignore his history with Zine, still choosing to hate Force users. He blames her for his newfound loneliness on the Nile ship, despite choosing to go with Elder Tromac himself. The High Republic Adventures shows an important divergence in the choices we face when our long-held perspectives and beliefs, known as schemas, are challenged. We have the choice to admit that what we thought to be true may be inaccurate, allowing our schemas to be changed, or we have the choice to reject change and hold steady to our pre-held beliefs, morphing what we witness to fit within our pre-existing schemas. It shows how broadening our perspectives can lead to support, while narrowing them can lead to a place of anger and hate. Most of all, it teaches us how powerful stereotypes are and how hard they are to overcome. In the end, who knows? Perhaps Crix will see the error in his ways and allow his perspective on Force wielders to change. Only time will tell. Anyway, thanks for watching through this experimental attempt to blend psychology concepts with Star Wars storytelling. Let me know in the comments if you like this type of video and want to see more. I hope you consider subscribing for more unique Star Wars content, and may the Force be with you.